All right, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another episode of Construction Champions Podcast where we're burning the house down twice a week. Every Monday and Thursday, you can find me here with a rock star guest talking about how we become better people, better business owners, better husbands, wives, better everything at a championship level. And of course, we're talking about the construction industry because that's where we all operate. That's where we all love to live. I have another rock star guest here with me today, Roxxann. It is great to have you here with us.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to talk, but before we dive in there, why don't you tell all the champions a little bit about yourself or what got you here or what excites you?
Well, hey, champions. Yes. Well, what got me here is I'm an executive recruiter in the construction and real estate development industry. And so my company that I work for, Joseph Chris Partners, we have been doing this for 40 years. I, in particular, have been doing this since the beginning of the year. But before that, I was in military family services, I was in healthcare, and the most awesome facility services, which I guess that's up to debate if that's part of construction or not. We can Rochambeau that. But yeah, and that led me into recruiting for companies that need executive level support.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to have a conversation today. We connected over some commonalities of areas that we have been in, as well as your husband's service there. Just all kind of somehow came together, and we're here
Yes.
having this conversation today. I always say the universe is never wrong. So here we are, and I'm going to dive right in there and I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
Uh,
Hey, construction champions. It's your host, Ron Nussbaum here. And I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12 and what it can do for the front end of your business today. It's absolutely amazing. I highly recommend going and meeting with Les and his son, Devin, and talking to him about what they built for their own business so the rest of the industry can take benefit from that. Here on Construction Champions, we're all about helping each other out. And what is better than contractors helping contractors? I say nothing. So let's go take this to the next level. Go check out Build 12. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Les or his son, Devin. We're here to help. We want to continue to grow the industry.
yes, I've thought about this from many different perspectives, from the recruiting perspective, and then from the other side, the person that we're recruiting, what that perspective should be. And I have come down to kind of one resolution is, we can talk about skills and focus, leadership, mindset, and all that. But, what I really look for in particular is resiliency. And I think that just feeds across many different industries, right? Like, how do you overcome things? What is your personality that allows you to overcome said thing, even if that's in the work environment, if that's the actual work itself, if that's in your home life? What are those challenges and how do you overcome that to become a better person and a better teammate?
I love that because I think resilient, if I can even spit it out. Here we
It's
go.
a tricky word for sure.
Uh like that's something that's overlooked in life in general, just as a hard or easy skill that you just have to develop through life. But I can definitely see where how from a recruiting perspective, that's something that you're looking at when you're talking to people for these construction roles. How I guess kind of for the guys out there that are listening, how do you go about honing in on that and understanding if somebody's BSing you about it or if they really
Yeah.
have it?
Yeah. So, we've all heard the dreaded stories from whatever channel you listen to of when you go into an interview and they say, "What's your greatest weakness?" That's not something I traditionally ask. I kind of lead off of, I ask questions like, "What was your first job? Tell me about that. Tell me how you got to where you are with your education, with your current company. Tell me more about your family. Tell me what is your why? Why do you do this?" And out of those questions about really digging in and learning who the person is, you really start checking the boxes of, how they have been resilient in their lives and things that they've overcome, the person they are, the leadership style that they have, and if they're adaptable or not, what skill sets they have. I mean, people openly love to talk about their skills and abilities, but more of the soft skills, those are more the things that we kind of dig at to make sure that you're a true culture fit for the company that we're hiring for.
Hmm. So now so we have a lot of movement moving in towards the construction industry, and this is
Yeah.
you can take this any direction that you want to take it. We
Yeah.
can continue down the path we want, or we can dive off into somewhere else. But
Okay.
how do you start to bring in, say, people that are getting out of high school
Yeah.
or getting out of the military that might have only been in for 4 years, or maybe they were in for 20, but so they would have more of a resume. So I think where I'm actually going with the questions, like people that don't have as much of a resume,
Yeah.
how do we start to figure out who those people are that would be a good fit for us?
Okay, I'm going to talk about this in kind of twofold. So, if we're talking about a high schooler that has limited experience, what I would suggest is during the high school years, and I know it's hard to say because when you're in high school, you don't really know what you want to do. But, as parents, we really need to foster that curiosity in our kids to explore the things that they love. And with that is to look for certifications that they can use um, on their resume, to look for programs within the high school that they can do. I can speak to where you are a little bit, and I'll speak to where I am in the school districts. And they have kids at our local high school building tiny homes and in welding programs. And the second part to the high school program is I really think companies in general need to do a better job at the long recruitment plan. Really targeting those high schools for those skilled trades that are in high demand but short supply. There's
Hmm.
not enough labor for those. And so they have to play the long game of recruiting talent to see the value and the compensation packages that they're actually offering. And so the second part of your question was for military members. And I know you and I, on a personal level, we've talked about this a little bit, and me coming from transition services. When you go through TAPS or any transition program, I think a lot of the times, and I might get some smoke for this, but they do a disservice in teaching you about resumes in general, how to translate your experience. And so I would dare to say that when you're coming out of military service, you probably don't really have a resume that speaks to skills and abilities in many industries because they don't give you the skills to translate that very well, and the skills that they do not correlate to real life. It's someone who is teaching transition assistance for many years, and maybe they are not up on the trends or current happenings uh, in the recruiting world or in HR or for hiring managers, however way you want to split that. Um, but yeah, I think more work needs to be done there, and that's where recruiters are very helpful. On my side of things, I'm more of a headhunter, and so we are hired by companies to go find the executive level, the highly skilled, highly sought after individual. But that bleeds down into them needing skilled trades and all of those things as well, more mid level. And so if you are the 20-year service member getting out, you very much fit into those criteria. You just have to translate your skills accordingly. You can't say I was an infantryman for 20 years and so I'm fit this role. You have to spell it out for us, especially those of us who do not have the military experience to be able to say, oh, yes, this training that you did here correlates to this training over here. And so, like when you're signing up for the VA, you have to find someone who specializes in VA disabilities. I think you should find someone who also specializes in career transition outside of the military sphere so they can help you correlate your skills.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, this is something that's it's obviously dear to my heart and yours as well, because I think the military fits so well into construction, and it's
Hmm.
so overlooked, and the construction industry doesn't do a good enough job of that, of
No.
recruiting and bringing, you gave me chills when you were talking about being proactive in high schools. I know some
Yes.
people that are doing that in their communities that
Yes.
are in the HVAC industry. And
Yes.
they're going in and they're that from a freshman level, they're just teaching courses, and they're giving kids an opportunity to come out of high school and come work for them, but they started fostering that relationship when they were a freshman. Uh, but I think we can do a lot better job with the military, uh,
Yes.
because I believe there's nothing more loyal than taking somebody and giving them. It's not even about giving them an opportunity. It's about just saying, yeah, I recognize what you've done, and I want to have you on the team, and I believe we can get you where we need you to get you. But all too often, like what you said, is what happens is like we get out, and I say we because I fit into this bucket, and I put your other
Yes.
shitty resume. I went through, it's a checkbox item for
Yes.
all parties.
Yes.
Like I was getting medically discharged, my knee was done, my career was done in the Marine Corps.
Hmm.
They were done with me, and I was pissed about that, and I was done with them. So like TAPS was like checkbox for the Marine Corps, checkbox for Ron Nussbaum. Like,
You spent about 2 hours talking about career transition and how to translate your skills, and that's just not enough. It's not. But yeah, it's very much a check in the box. And, we can talk about things that are actionable items that service members, high school kids can do now that'll make you attractive to recruiters, even at that entry level. But I very much agree with you. There has to be more of that middle ground, less of the check in the box, and more somebody that is translative on both sides.
yeah, and I know. So, I mean, we have a lot of business owners that listen to this podcast, a lot of guys that own companies that, they're always looking for whatever that role is. Leadership is something the construction industry desperately needs, and I believe that the military can help fill that gap. And if you don't mind, because we're hard-headed individuals, so like I'm getting out, and I'm not necessarily finding somebody like yourself that's qualified, because I think I can figure this out, especially the longer you've been in, the longer you've been in, the longer you feel that way. But for the guys that are listening, that own companies and are looking for these leadership roles, or not just leadership roles, but are looking to bring people in, and they get that resume, and it's a veteran's resume, how can they decipher some of that stuff? Does that make sense from a bit, like if a business owner's looking at a resume that Ron Nussbaum put together, and it looks like shit, and none of it really corresponds, but there is stuff in there that does. What should the business owners be looking for in those
Y-
resumes? I guess would maybe be the better way
Yeah.
to frame that.
Well, I'm going to give you kind of a contrite answer. And the answer is there is a phone number usually on that resume, and I think you should call that service member and really talk about what his skills are. Um, because I can probably guarantee you 99% why his resume is that way is because someone told him that's how his resume is supposed to be, and it's not translative. And so if you do have a heart to hire veterans in particular, call and speak to him about all of the acronyms that he just put on his resume the years in service, his awards that he put on there, and every unit that he was with, call, ask him how it translates. Say, this is, I need a logistics skill. List the skills. Say, how does this fit what you said on your resume? And you would be amazed at how far a conversation would go. And so I know that puts a lot of time on the business owner. Um, but hey, if you want to hire a veteran, sometimes that's what you have to do is kind of break that barrier per se and say, let's really have a conversation. At the end of that conversation, if it's not a fit, you learn something, and then that veteran learns something on how to do better and how to relate to that company, industry, or job role.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think a lot of like they're just looking for somebody to understand that we do have the skill set to do the job.
Hmm.
It might not transit like when I got out, like that was and I applied for this foreman and training role. I had no construction experience, but I knew I could be a foreman and train. Like I knew I could go do that job. I could be a foreman. I had the skill set to do that. And I still think one of the only reasons I got the job because everybody else that was getting hired had construction management degrees, but the guy was an army guy and he loved the Marines.
Yeah.
And he gave me an opportunity because he said Marines have never done me wrong. They've never left me high and dry.
Hmm.
Like it's I want to. I'm going to give you an opportunity here, and I was fiercely loyal because of that, and I think that's what people miss, especially in an industry that has so much turnover, so much. How do we keep people engaged and keep them growing? Is a lot of times veterans, if you look at them and do what you just said, pick up the phone and have that conversation and learn, see if they all fit. Does that skill set apply? They are going to be fiercely loyal to your company throughout their employment with you.
And yeah, and they usually are. And, that's the most serendipitous part is when you can connect somebody who has those soft skills of resiliency and loyalty and adaptability to really, take that 90 days to foster the skill set that the job role requires in a entry level, mid-level role. And then before you know it, that person will probably be one of your top executives.
Hmm. Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. So what do you see? You're in the thick of the
Yeah.
construction hiring realm of things. We're hearing I think ever since I got in construction, hiring's been a problem. There's just not enough, especially at the level you hire people at.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
you're at a very high level of executives. So I take it that pool is small. Is it smaller than it has been, or what do you see happening? What do you think's going on out there?
It depends on the subsect that we're talking about within construction and real estate development. And then, the construction world is very small. And so usually when a company has an opening, they know about it. So we actually end up doing a lot of confidential searches. Um, and you know what that means is the company hires us. They say, we don't want anybody to know what our name is. We just want to see if they're interested in the role. And if they are further along in the process, we can tell them. And then we have candidates who want to be confidential as well because they're employed at XYZ company and they want to go over to a bigger name company. And so yeah, what I'm seeing is again, the world is really small. People talk just like the military. And the roles at the level that I am, I don't even want to say they're few and far between because they're not, because we work nationwide. Um, but they're all dependent on, and I get the number one request from candidates and the employers, so the clients, of culture. Okay. It all comes down to beyond the compensation packages, beyond um, the skill sets. They want to know, am I a culture fit? Am I going to be happy in the work environment? Am I going to be able to spend time with my family? Am I going to be able to do the things that I enjoy? And so that's one of the trends, if it's even a trend, if we call it, it's not really, it's just equality amongst work and home life, right? So that's the biggest thing I'm seeing right now as request from both ends that are matching.
Hmm. So the companies are looking for people that fit what their culture is. And
Yes.
people are, we've already, I love that angle because we very rarely talk about it from a company perspective, searching for people that fit that culture. We hear
Yes.
about people that are looking for a company that fits them and has the culture they want to work for. But now we have companies going out and that to me, that's awesome because that means you got construction companies that understand who they are, what
Hmm.
they do, and what is that culture within their company, which
Yeah. And I think it's return on investment with your hire. If they're going to be happy, they're going to produce for you, right? Um, and then with the candidate in particular, it's return on investment. I'm investing all my time in you. Am I going to be happy working there and then be able to have equal time with my family? And so I think as a larger culture in general, I think it's great that we're really focusing on, if personality hires. Not saying that that's kind of a negative connotation, meaning they don't have the skills to go with it, but you have to be likable. If you're not a likable person, it's very hard to place you. It really is. Even in the construction industry, even in the military, if you are not a likable guy in your unit, I mean, it's a bad time for you.
yeah, no, that's a good point. So for anybody out there that's looking for work, like you have to be likable. Or if
You have to be likable. Yes.
anybody that's hiring anybody, I think a lot of times like owners or managers or leadership can be like they think it's more of we're going through this hiring process and they don't necessarily have to be likable, but it's like a date, like that's what you're doing. You guys have to like each other.
Yeah, well, I would venture to say that the companies that we hire have to be likable as well. I mean, because we can't attract candidates to them if they are not likable. If the word on the street is that they have a toxic manager, toxic owner, and I just don't like that word, but I think it's the easiest word to get across that these people are micromanagers. They do everything to kind of make people miserable. And we just can't recruit people to those companies because, like I said, construction is a small world and people really want a collaborative environment where they think that their ideas matter no matter what level of the company that they're in. They want to be able to go to their direct supervisor and say, hey, I think this could work better. Do you think we could work on implementing this and not be told to go pound sand every 5 minutes, but to take it serious?
See, I think that's something for the listeners to really dive into and listen to what you're saying there is because like you said, it is in any environment, in any space that you're in throughout construction, people know what your reputation is, and the labor pool really is what it is, except for
Hmm.
the new people coming into that market who's going to quickly find out. So like you have to be putting forth this reputation that not just with your customers, but with your employees that
Yeah.
isn't just that to me that makes a lot of sense because I think you see that too often where people think of it as yeah I like there's hiring problems and stuff in the construction industry and there's a people shortages, there's all of this stuff, but maybe it's just a reputation that you have built in around the area you're at. uh
In some cases, it very much is. Yeah, and then there are times where there's companies where, they're looking for multiple roles. And one of the questions that we ask when we're onboarding a client is why did this person leave the role or why is this person leaving the role? And we want to know mainly, again, culturally, why it wasn't a fit. There's facts to skill sets, right? Like you can quantitatively and qualitatively give me numbers and facts about this person that make sense why they may not have been able to perform in the role. But beyond that, what's the culture like that you couldn't bring that out or foster that in that person or teach them? Sometimes it comes down to training because you didn't hire or promote this person because they didn't have the skills. So either they misrepresented themselves or there's a culture problem. So we try to figure that out with the company. We work with their HR departments. If they don't have an HR department, we work with the owners or the hiring managers in particular and discuss these issues in detail because ultimately it affects our bottom line if we can't attract a candidate, and it affects their bottom line if they can't get a candidate from us. So, it's a win-win to really hash those problems out in the beginning.
Yeah, and what do you find is it typically somebody either misrepresented themselves, or is it just not that culture fit, or it's just not the right position? What's typically the reason why somebody doesn't make it or they don't last in a position at a company?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of multifaceted. I think it's very rare someone really truly misrepresents themselves. I mean, your education, your certifications, your licensures all kind of have to back you up in certain job titles that we fill here. But ultimately, it comes down to maybe somebody not understanding the job scope enough. Maybe they came from an environment where they were finishing 400 houses a year and they got hired at a company that finishes 800 houses a year and they just aren't used to the volume and there wasn't really any training program or training initiative in between to help them uh, with their potential to reach being able to manage that volume. And so again, I mean, if you dig down to the root cause of that, in my perspective, that's also culture too. Because do you have a collaborative environment to where you are consistently mentoring and training so that way you can suss that out, kind of hit that problem head on, maybe put a mentor or you personally mentor that person because ultimately your company just invested a lot of money in that hire, even within the first 90 days. That's a lot of money. And so you have to make a choice. Either I'm going to make this work or I'm going to lose that money and hire someone else. And so, I do see a lot in very healthy companies that they do foster and mentor and they put mentor programs in place. And, on a veteran's perspective, I see that a lot more and that's being promoted a lot more is find a mentor. Find someone in an industry that you want to be in, reach out to them and say, tell me about your job scope. Tell me about what you do on a daily basis. How do I get from where I am to doing that? What are the steps? And really talk to them, on a weekly, monthly basis, to see if you're hitting those step goals. And, I think in a hiring environment, it has to be that way too.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I've heard of the from like a bigger company perspective, doing like the buddy program from day one with
Hmm.
your buddy, not necessarily a mentor. I like the mentor thing, especially in higher level, like leadership, supervisor, management roles. But just as you bring somebody into the company, you give them a buddy within the company. It's
Hmm.
somebody that they can connect with, have conversations with, or just ask if they have questions that isn't in their either their office setting or in their direct line of command, chain of command, or anything like that. It's just somebody within the company that they can build a relationship with and ask questions about how some stuff works. And I always thought that was a pretty good idea.
I mean, I think it's a great idea. And, I want to point out this setup behind me back here. This is my CEO's desk of our company. And this is kind of the collaborative work environment that we work in is she has a desk in her office and every employee in the company has started out at a desk in her office, and every executive member of the team has an open door policy where you can walk in and you can ask any question. You can ask to work on any project. You you could do a multitude of things to learn and to grow. And not saying that our company has the brightest and best ideas, even though I believe that we do. But I believe a lot of companies should foster that idea of the mentorship and the buddy system. And, because I think it provides comfort into the person coming into a new environment, into a new work culture, getting to know people and having a direct person to say, hey, is this actually how things are working? I'm reading the training manual. I don't understand it. You're using a software I'm not used to. Could you spend an extra 30 minutes showing that to me? And I think it creates a better work environment and a better employee.
Awesome. I love it. Ah, yes. I always love having these conversations around recruiting, hiring, just because there's so many great things to be talked about in this because I think it's a very misunderstood word. And when you learn to get it right, it's very powerful as a company.
It is. It is. And if we could take just a few minutes, I know people listening that are looking for a job want some actionable items that they can do. So, from a recruiter's perspective, I'm going to give them three things that they can do. First is your LinkedIn is your most important skill to get down. It is a skill. You have to spend hours researching what to put on LinkedIn and how to put it on LinkedIn. No one way is right. You could listen to 1,000 people tell you how to, you know, install your LinkedIn and what to put on there. But I will say in your about section, what recruiters like beyond just giving us a job history or a job summary. Tell us something about yourself. Tell us something that impassions you, empowers you. Tell us your why. Even if it's your family, we want to know that. We want to know something about you. And then in your job history, put relevant titles. If you were a cashier, cashier is great. But you can elaborate on that. Most cashiers are doing accounts receivable, accounts payable. Um, they're creating balances and all of those things. So you want to be able to just really elaborate in that section because you don't want to leave us guessing or implying what your skill set is. Um, and then the third thing, the most important thing is your resume. And it's important, and I'm going to go back to the second thing in a minute, but the third thing, your resume, it's important, but uh, if you get one thing wrong on your resume, it's not the end of the world. I know there's horror stories about ATS systems and all of this, and maybe at the big, Googles and Facebooks of the world, they use the ATS systems and the person isn't reading it. I would argue that there is a person reading it though. And I know in my world, I see your LinkedIn and then I do the second thing, and that's I call you. And if you don't answer the phone, I can't tell you about the opportunity. So always answer the phone for recruiters. Um, I get interesting calls all the time where I'm accused of being a spammer because I know information about them. I'm like, I can promise you, I just have an opportunity. You can tell me no. But yeah, so LinkedIn, answer the phone, and have a resume ready. Even if you don't think it's perfect, we can help you with that.
Awesome. I love it. And I love the actionable items. So for the construction champions out there listening, if they wanted to connect with you, follow you, or any of that, where's the best places for them to do that?
Yes, you can go to josephchris.com and you can go to Meet the Team, and I have my own bio page on there. And you can read all about me. It has my email address, my phone number, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn, which is also Roxxann Sczepanik.
Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, construction champions, another episode where I think it was one of the best deep dives we've ever had into recruiting and employees and culture and just all of that kind of stuff. It was a very open and honest conversation about what does that stuff look like? What are you doing at your company? What are you possible employees? What are they looking for? What does that sound like in today's environment? And we touched on something that we all know here is very near and dear to my heart is veterans. Because I've told all you guys on here many times is if you want to go find a lifelong employee that would be loyal to you, is go find a veteran and give them an opportunity to come work for you and do great things and put them in a position where they can do that. and you would be surprised what kind of results you can get. But it is up to you. Like Roxxann said so many times about like the culture in the setting people up for success, it still falls on the company. You have to find the right people, but you also have to be the right company that's willing to do the hard things that it takes to have success with employees. I mean, think about it. You can go hire somebody like Roxxann to bring people into your company only if you're the right company. Like she said that is they're going to look at you and make sure they want to make sure they can be successful at what they do. So if you're doing a shitty job on everything, you might want to clean that up and fastly and do some of the stuff we talked about and then reach out. Find the right people. It's not rocket science, but it can be hard because this is the hard stuff about running a business is having employees and doing the right thing and setting them up for success. So then you can really live your dreams of what you want to go do because you're not going to get there by yourself. I can guarantee you that. So make sure you go out, you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.
Introducing BuilderComms, your comprehensive construction communication software. Simplify project management with unified communications, real-time picture and document sharing, and instant project notifications. Keep everyone in the loop and ensure client satisfaction. Experience the transformation in construction project management with BuilderComms. Start streamlining your projects and keeping clients ecstatic today. Say goodbye to misunderstandings and endless email digging. Say hello to more winning time. Choose BuilderComms, your gateway to construction project success.